hallucinogenic artillery rounds. So back in the 1950s, the CIA was running this super shady project called MK Ultra. It's pretty famous for one reason. It was all about mind control. The CIA would do secret experiments with drugs like LSD, really sketchy stuff. And one of the things they cooked up during that whole mess was something called the BZ bomb. And no, it wasn't like a normal bomb that blows stuff up. The BZ bomb was designed to launch hallucinations. Think Scarecrow from Batman. It would shoot out a chemical called free quinacridonyl benzylate, which was completely odorless and basically turned whoever inhaled it into a walking fever dream. Radiant energy. When a star explodes, a lot of energy is shot out, expanding through our universe and giving us some pretty nice wallpapers. Unfortunately, that energy is just hanging out in space. But what if we could harness that energy, like a solar panel, and use it to build utopias, like something straight out of a sci-fi movie? Well, this is Dr. Thomas Henry Moray, and during the early 20th century, he did just that. Radiant energy, as he called it, is
that energy existing in the luminiferous medium of the universe, kinetic, exercise, and wave transmission, and made sensible by conversion of energy.
It's a lot. What Dr. Moray is trying to say is that radiant energy is the energy that was produced from nuclear reactions within stars that we humans can harness. A neutron in a star slams into a larger atom, causes it to split, which creates a huge amount of energy, and we can collect that energy. That's just cool. So how did Dr. Moray harness this energy? Well, he created this device that was a circuit that honed into the frequencies that this energy likes to hang out in, and once that energy found that circuit, it would pour in. Basically, we are funneling radiant energy through this device, and once enough energy is inputted, we can make it light up our lamps. And boy, did it light our lamps. Dr. Moray showed a 100-watt lamp that burned whiter and brighter than any other lamp, running straight for 157 hours without burning out. He was able to push out up to 50,000 watts. To put it into perspective, that's about how many watts a generator of a hospital is using. Sounds like a perfect invention. Nothing could go wrong. That was until Moray ran into the bureaucratic side of inventing, and what ultimately killed this idea was 3 big issues. Number 1, this invention was a small test, and if they wanted commercial output, they would need a lot of money to scale, and Dr. Moray couldn't get any investors to jump in on radiant energy. Number 2, Dr. Moray was tied to some people from the Rural Electrification Administration, or REA, who were also tied to being communist sympathizers, and during this time, you did not want to sympathize with communists. My boy Oppenheimer went through it. This was made even worse when Soviet spies disguised as researchers and scientists went into his lab and stole his ideas. Come on, man. You couldn't lock a door. Number 3, then worst of all, the US Patent Office. They denied Dr. Moray a patent because they needed proof that radiant energy actually existed. Wait, the device that proved radiant energy couldn't be patented because they needed to prove the energy existed. My head hurts. And Dr. Moray felt the same way because it ultimately led to the invention fizzling out. What's really crazy was how unceremonious this whole process was. Dr. Moray wrote a whole paper, showed experiments, really pushed his field, only to get knocked down because of when he was living. But who knows, maybe we'll see radiant energy come back in a new way. The Hemp Car. Wouldn't it be nice if we could grow cars? Yes. Imagine making cars from plants. This is the first thought that Henry Ford had back in the 1940s when he decided to make the Hemp Car. Now, Henry Ford was one of the wealthiest men in American history, with an estimated $1.2 billion net worth in the 1920s. So when you think of inventors being silenced, Henry Ford really shouldn't be part of that. And yet, that's exactly what happened to him. During the 1940s, we had a little thing called World War II going on. So there was a massive shortage of metal. Turns out weapons, tanks and ships are more important than doing donuts in a parking lot. So Ford went digging, kinda literally, and went into the idea of building a car made of a more reusable substance. He was way ahead of his time, thinking about sustainability and eco-friendly alternatives.
I made a mushroom car.
Henry, there's a war going on. What he came up with was this composite material, kind of like an early version of carbon fibre, that was made from hemp fibres mixed with other plant materials, and it was super efficient. The car body was super lightweight, but also incredibly strong. Ford even said it was 10 times stronger than steel. Can you imagine how much safer that could have made cars? Put crash test dummies out of a job. It gets better though. He didn't just stop at building a car out of plants. He wanted it to run on plants too, so he created this biofuel from hemp seeds. It was an ethanol-based fuel that he cooked up by fermenting the sugars and starches in the hemp plant. Way cleaner than traditional gasoline and very renewable. And it wasn't just a gimmick, it actually worked. The car got something like 40 miles per gallon which for the 1940s was pretty freaking impressive. And Ford was really into this whole idea of agriculturism, which basically meant he wanted to link farming and manufacturing. His vision was this closed loop system where farmers wouldn't just grow food, they'd grow materials for factories. So you'd have a farm that could literally grow your next car. So what stopped him? How can a billionaire environmentalist genius be stopped? Well, the oil industry as a whole. This new fuel threatened everything they were built on. And when you threaten big oil money, things start disappearing. Plus, hemp was unfortunately wrapped up in the whole reefer madness thing. People were freaking out about marijuana back then, even though industrial hemp doesn't even get you high. But they didn't care. Hemp equaled marijuana in their minds, so they used that as a convenient excuse. Although imagine hotboxing that car. Between the oil companies and the government, they pretty much shut the whole thing down. Just like that. Ford's hemp car became a weird footnote in history instead of the future of transportation. Can you imagine where we'd be now if that had actually caught on? Like, we could have had biodegradable plant-based cars that run on clean fuel 80 years ago. Dude, 80 years ago, we just barely discovered penicillin. Cavity structural effect. Now let's get really weird with this one. We've talked about cars made from plants and energy from the stars. But what about a hovercraft made entirely from insect shells? No engine, no fuel, just insects. This Russian scientist is Viktor Grebenikov, and he was deep into something called the cavity structural effect, or CSE for short. The basic idea behind CSE is that certain patterns in nature, ones that allow airspace or cavities between its building materials, think beehives or like those weird mattresses, have these bizarre energy effects. The way the air moves through them and the materials they're made from can supposedly affect the space around them. Grebenikov thought these natural structures could be used to heal people or even mess with gravity. Yup, here's a Russian scientist thinking beehives can create anti-gravity fields. Are we sure we're not in a sci-fi movie? I feel it keeps coming up. Grebenikov got super into it. He was especially obsessed with insect shells because apparently a lot of bugs have these microscopic, repeating cavity structures in their exoskeletons. One day, he puts two insect shells near each other, perfectly lined up, and one of them supposedly floats. Defying gravity, no witch is needed. He said that when positioned just right, the shells seem to repel gravity somehow. No batteries, no wires, just nature doing sci-fi stuff. But that's not the end of it. He claimed he built an actual flying platform using these insect shell pieces. No engines, no rotors, just a board covered with carefully cut and arranged insect shell fragments. And supposedly, he flew this thing up to 300 meters in the air and hit speeds around 1,500 kilometers per hour. That's almost Mach 1 on a flying bug shell surfboard. I feel like I'm losing you a bit, but trust, it gets worse. He said the ride was wild, but smooth. He described it like being in this invisible bubble that shielded him from inertia and air resistance. Like he's zipping through the air faster than a jet, but feeling like he's floating on a cloud. Basically, Superman meets organic sci-fi hover tech. So the obvious question is, if there was a flying man in the air going Mach 1, how come no one saw this? Well, turns out the scientific community had the same question and shut Grebenikov out. He got fully shunned, and a lot of his published work either disappeared or got heavily censored. There are only scattered accounts and documents left, mostly written by him. So, was it real? Did this Russian dude really stumble onto nature's secret anti-gravity code and build a backyard bug-shell jetpack? We might never know, but honestly, part of me wants it to be true. How awesome would it be if the secret to flying cars was hiding in a grasshopper's butt this whole time? Water-powered cars. This next item asks the question, what if we could use water to fuel our cars? Not gas, but renewable, ever-present, falling from the sky. Water. Meet Stanley Meyer. He's a US inventor who's made a bold claim. He's found a way to make a car drive with water. Tap water, rainwater, anything works. Just imagine it for a second. You could fill up from a hose in your backyard. It rains outside, you get a free tank of gas. Hell, someone breaks your heart, you can use those tears to drive.
Becky, how could you do this to me?
So here's how Meyer pitched it. He created a water fuel cell, and the idea was to use high voltage electrolysis, basically using electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. You'd burn the hydrogen for energy, and the only emission, water vapor, no smoke, no pollution, no carbon monoxide, just clean harmless steam. And it wasn't just theory either. Meyer had a full-on dune buggy that he said ran completely on water. He even claimed it could drive across the entire United States on just 83 gallons. That's coast to coast, like 2,700 miles. Do the math, and that's about 32 miles per gallon, which, for water, that's kind of mind-blowing. Honestly, for gas, that's still pretty good. But of course, the story doesn't end with Meyer riding off into the sunset in his water-powered dune buggy. Fast forward to 1998, and Stanley Meyer suddenly dies after having dinner with a group of Belgian investors. Cause of death? Brain aneurysm. And a lot of people thought, that's way too convenient. He was literally pitching his invention that could destroy the oil industry, and then just drops dead. And honestly, the whole thing was pretty shady even before that. In the years between his first announcement and his death, people were either obsessed with him or trying to debunk him. Articles came out constantly, some calling him a genius, others calling him a fraud. At one point, an Ohio judge had 3 experts evaluate his tech, but instead of fully testing it, they were told they couldn't even see how the machine worked. Meyer hid everything, not even letting a single part get out to another scientist. I mean, come on, you gotta let someone actually look under the hood if you want the world to believe you. In the end, the court basically ruled he hadn't proven anything and said it was just a scam, but no one really knows for sure. The car disappeared, the tech was never replicated publicly, and to this day, people still argue about whether it was legit or just a brilliant hoax. We'll probably never know. I'll just have to stick to water-powered jetpacks. Coral Castle. Alright guys, gotta be honest with this one. It's a stretch, but we're like halfway through the video. I feel like we can play around with some weirder stuff. This is Coral Castle, and the real mysterious tech here is related to Stonehenge. It was created by Edward Leeds Cullen back in the 1920s, and he created it for his lost love, beautiful Agnes. He created this monument to love out of these massive stones called oolite, which aren't as tough as say granite, but each stone weighed literal tons, and that's where the mystery comes in. No one saw him build this, it just appeared. When people asked him how he managed to move and position these enormous stones by himself, he just said, "I've discovered the secrets of the pyramids." It wasn't until his giant gate fell apart that the public finally found out how he did it. Turns out he drilled a perfectly centered hole through this stone gate, inserted a metal shaft and truck bearing, and balanced it so precisely that it could move with the push of a finger. That doesn't explain every rock though. Could it be engineering again? Or maybe the mystery of the pyramids? Alright, let's move on. Cloud busting. When there's something large blocking your sun, who are you gonna call? Cloud busters! Sorry, I had to. This technology is called cloud busting, and it was created by an Austrian psychiatrist named Wilhelm Reich in the 1950s. Seems like a big career change, from "how do you feel?" to "I command the clouds to disperse." So Reich had this theory about something he called orgone energy, basically a cosmic life force that flows through everything. Think of it like chakra from Naruto or the Force from Star Wars. According to him, orgone not only fuels life, but also holds clouds together and affects weather patterns. Naturally, the guy decided he could manipulate it. And that's where the Cloudbuster comes in. No, not that one. This wasn't some huge high-tech machine. It was literally a set of long metal tubes, kind of like massive gun barrels that were hollow and pointed at the sky. These tubes were connected at the base to water, which apparently helped draw or ground the orgone energy. What did it do? According to Reich, it could make clouds form, break them apart, and even summon rain. You could literally aim it at the sky and cause the weather to shift. It was, for obvious reasons, not really accepted in the scientific community. Until one day in 1953, there was this massive drought threatening a blueberry harvest in Maine. Desperate, a group of farmers hired Reich to come out and try his rain summoning device. He set up the Cloudbuster and ran it for just over an hour. The next day, no joke, it rained. Enough to save the blueberry crop. Coincidence? Maybe. But after that, people started paying way more attention. But not the right people. Reich wasn't exactly embraced by the scientific community. He was always seen as this fringe figure, and a lot of his work got banned, burned, or straight up erased over time. But every once in a while, someone rediscovers cloud busting and starts wondering what if he was onto something. So much so that you, yes you, can build your very own cloud buster. There are DIY guides online. Look at what I found with one Google search. You just need the right materials, but be warned. Reich claimed that using one incorrectly could seriously mess up the weather, like accidentally tearing holes in the sky or triggering extended storms and even tornadoes. So yeah, no pressure, or I guess air pressure. Sorry. And this is our final guy, Nikola Tesla. You've heard of him, both as a scientist and as the name of the electric cars and now trucks, but he also has a deep rabbit hole of technology that we may never see. We know Tesla mostly for his obsession with alternating current, or AC. Edison was really not into that. He was all in on direct current DC, and Edison could be kind of a prick and hated AC as a concept. Tesla, however, believed AC was way more efficient, especially for sending electricity over long distances, and he was right. It's the system a lot of power grids still use today. The way AC works is actually super clever. You take a magnetic field and move it through a closed loop of wire and boom, current starts flowing. No batteries, just physics. It's based on something called Faraday's law, and Tesla mastered it. He built devices that use rotating magnetic fields to create a steady stream of electricity. It was revolutionary. But Tesla wasn't content just making better light bulbs or generators. He had huge dreams. He believed that energy could and should be free. Like, he wanted to pull power straight from the atmosphere and beam it wirelessly across the planet. Clean, limitless energy for everyone. Of course, that scared the hell out of anyone making money from fuel and electricity. He got labelled as a radical, even though he was literally years ahead of everyone else. Makes me wonder if he'd have the same problem today. Tesla's wildest inventions and theories were kept in these red boxes. Kind of, it's all very hearsay from here on. Inside were said to be blueprints for wireless energy systems, anti-gravity tech, and even energy weapons. But when he died in 1943, the US government swooped in and confiscated all his papers and gear. But the papers, I hear you say? Don't worry, the government had an MIT professor named John G. Trump. Yeah, turns out he's related to the president. What a weird world we live in. And had him go over all of these red boxes with notes. He claimed Tesla's notes didn't hold anything useful. But come on, the timing, the secrecy, it screams cover up. Tesla spent the last years of his life broke and alone. While other inventors got rich off his ideas, it wasn't until decades later that people started realising how much we owe to him and how much we may have lost when his work was hidden away. So now he's finally getting the credit he deserves, but we're still left wondering, what was in those boxes? Did he really crack free energy? Was he sitting on technology that could have changed the entire world? And honestly, that question could apply to all of these items on the list. Were there any that you think were stranger than the rest? Did these inventions really work? We may never know, but stick to future thinking for more episodes coming soon.